So welcome back on these third videos on advanced commands in Unix. So in this video, we're going to see how to manage process, which is something that you can do on any terminal. And then we're going to see how to run jobs on the broad server. So this will be something which is really specific to you as a fellow. So as you can see, there are multiple commands related to process management. So the goal of process management is to manage all the processes that are running in the background so that you can continue to use the shell. So let's take an example to understand what does it mean to run a process in the background. So let's say you want to use a command that needs some times to finish, for example, compressing a file. So for example, let's say that here I want to compress this file. As you can see, this command requires several seconds where I cannot have access to the shell. So what I'm doing here is I'm canceling this command, and I want to run this command in the background. And so to do that, I'm just going to use this character called an ampersand. And by doing that, you can see that this job is running in the background. And during that time, I can continue to play a little bit with the shell. And when this process will be done, I just have a message saying that my command, which was running in the background, is done. So there are multiple commands to manage the processes that are running in the background. You can find them on this sheet. And so, for example, you're going to have some commands that display all your active processes, or some command to kill some processes running in the background. So I'm going to show you some examples. Okay, so first, let's run some processes in the background. So I'm going to use this command, sleep 1000, which is a command that frees your shell during 1000 seconds. So I'm just going to run one to have some time. I'm going to run a second one with a different number to dissociate the two processes. So the first thing you can do is using the command jobs to see your current jobs that are running. You can also use the command ps. And in here, you will have the name of the functions that are running and the ID of the processes that are running. For some reason, you want to kill some of this process, you just need to type kill followed by the number of the process you want to kill. And as you can see here, you have only one sleep process which is running. And let's say now you want to go back to the last process which is running. You just need to type FG, and this will bring you to the process, the last process that is running on the background. So now let's say that you want to run some program such as R that is not only a one-line command, that is a whole software for which you need to have the software open. Then what you can do is use the screen function. So the screen function allows you to use multiple sessions. So there are like few commands you need to know. First, the command to create and join a session, which is screen capital S and the name of the session you want to create. Then to exit the session, you need to use the keys Control A and D at the same time. To list all your sessions, you need to type screen list. If you want to join a session that is already created, you need to type screen R followed by the name of the session. And to kill a session, you just need to type exit when you are in a session. So now let's illustrate that with an example. Okay, so let's say we want to use R in the background. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new screen using screen -s followed by the name we want to give to this new session. And we're going to call this screen 1. I'm going to type enter. I'm going to wait a little bit. And then we're going to be in a new session where we're going to first use R, like download the R version we want to use on the broad server. And then by calling R. Okay, and let's say in this session, we want to read some genetic files and do some computation. And I'm just going to write some kind of basic computation we want to do. Okay, now let's say you want to exit this error environment and come back to this environment later. So here you just need to get out of the screen. So you just need to type Control A and then B. And now you're out of the screen. Now let's say you want to go back to the screen. You're just going to type screen R and the name of your screen. And then you're back to your screen. Okay. And now let's say you can do another computation and decide to exit the screen and come back to the screen later. What you can do is also open a second screen. And so to do that, you're going to do, for example, screen -s and open another screen, which we're going to name screen 2. Okay, here we are. So here we are in a new session called screen 2. And here again, we're going to decide to use R to open R and to do some even more complex computations. Okay. And now we want to exit. So we just type Control A and D. Okay, so by doing that, you can create multiple screens. And to know the name of all the screens that are open, you just need to type screen -list. And so here we can see that we have 2 screens that are open, screen 1 and screen 2. And so the last thing you need to know is how to close a screen. And so to do that, you need to be in the screen. So let's go back to screen 1. We quit R, we don't save, and we just type exit. And now we've killed the screen. And when we, for example, reuse screen list, you can see that there's only one screen that is available because we killed the first one. So now let's go to the second part of this video, which is how to run jobs on the broad server. So why and when should we run jobs on the broad server? So as you can see, the first message when you connect to the broad server is this one. Important, this login host is a shared resource. Please limit your usage to editing, simple scripts, and small data transfer tasks. To encourage mindful use, limits have been put in place, including memory limitations. So what does it mean? This means that you cannot run very intensive jobs when you are directly connected to the broad server. you need to run intensive jobs on different nodes. And to do that, you need to specify in a file the command, the intensive command that you want to run on the broad server. So you should run jobs on the broad server when your job is long. So for example, if it's more than 2 hours, when your job is resource intensive. So for example, if your job needs to run big genetic data and it needs, let's say, 10 gigabytes of memory, you cannot run this command directly when you are logged on the broad server. You need to run a command for which you specify that you need 10 gigabytes of memory and run that to a different server. And finally, you should run jobs on the broad server when you have several jobs to run at the same time. So let's say you have 1,000 jobs to run, then you just need to specify to the broad server that you need to run 1,000 commands, and then the server will decide how to prioritize those 1,000 jobs. So how to run jobs on the broad server? So the name of the broad cluster is called UGER, as Univa Grid Engine for Research. And the first thing you need to set up your environment to be able to submit to UGER is just to type use UGER. Then the basic command to submit a job on this cluster is to type qsub followed by a bash script. By default, this default command assigns a limit of 1 gigabyte of memory, 2 hours of running time, and 1 core. And in the case of your job reach either one of the memory or the computational time limit, your job will be killed. So it's really important to know a little bit in advance what memory and what time you need for your job. So you can, of course, modify the limits of your job. So for example, you can set memory limits to 10 gigabytes using this L option. You can set running time limit to a value that goes up to 30 days. So for example, here, 10 hours. You can also specify both limits by using twice the L option of the qsub command. And you can also set the number of cores you need for your job. So by default, the output slug are stored in files that are similar to your bash script, followed by a dot and by o job ID. Of course, you can specify the output file using -o followed by the path to your output file. Then there are 2 commands you need to know to manage your jobs. The first one is qstat, that will show all the jobs that are running. And the command to kill a job, which is qdel followed by the job ID. And now I'm going to quickly show you how to do that in practice. Okay, so in this example, I've created bash script called analyze_gwas.sh. And when we look at what is in this script, we can see that this script takes as an input a GWAS file, and then it looks at the number of SNPs in the GWAS file, the number of SNPs with a p-value below 10 to the minus 8, and then it prints the minimum p-value using some awk command. So now let's say I want to run this script on some GWAS file on the broad server because this computation is very intensive. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use Uger, as I say, Uger, which is the broad no. And then I'm going to submit the job qsub followed by the name of my script, followed by my GWAS file, which is in the variable GWAS all. And as you can see, my job has been submitted to the broad server. So now to see if the job is running, I'm just typing qstat, and it's gonna list all my jobs that are currently running. And to see the output of my script, I just need to look at what's going on in this file. And so you can see that at this stage, it only looked at the number of SNPs in my file, which is something around 13 million. So now let's update what is in this file. So you can see that my program is still running. And now what I want to do is just to stop this job. And so to do that, I'm just going to type qdel and the name, the ID of my job, which is here. So now let's say that you need to run some resource-intensive programs, such as reading and analyzing really large files using R. Then in this situation, you cannot just run a job to the broad server. You just want to be in a session that allows you to have a lot of memory. So to do that, you're going to require an interactive session by using this command, qlogin, followed by the option -q interactive to specify that you want to have an interactive section, followed by the number of memory you want. So here, for example, 20 giga, followed by how many times you want to keep this interactive session open. So for example, here, 10 hours. And then by doing that, you'll be able to log in into an interactive session and be able to run R by having access to a large amount of memory. So in practice, this is how does it look like. This is the command to open an interactive section with 2 giga of memory. You type enter, and then you just wait the server to orient you to a cluster that have available 2 giga of memory. And now you can decide to use R. And now you're able to read and play with really large data using R. So this was all we wanted to show you regarding on how to submit jobs to the broad server. You could find more information on the broad website, which is you can find here. And I'll see you in the last video of this topic 4.